And official Van Halen merchandise is provided by VanHalenStore.com. Now, here's your host from Ontario, Canada, EVH gear artist Eric Broadbent.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to an extremely early Sunday morning edition of EVH Gear TV. We are live, and I have a very special guest coming all the way from Cologne, Germany, Mr. Billy Sheehan. How you doing, Billy?
Doing great, Eric. Thanks for having me on. Sorry to keep you up so late, but I'm here in Cologne, Germany on Mr. Big Tour, and hopefully I ask your listeners and watchers to bear with us in case there's a couple drop. So there's a dropout. I'll jump right back on.
No problem. Yeah, if I lose you, I'll just switch to another camera, and then I'll call you back. How's that sound?
Perfect.
That sounds good. So you have beautiful weather over there this morning. It's very sunny, kind of quite the contrary to what I have over here.
Yeah, it's very nice. Cologne is quite an amazing city. There's an incredible cathedral here. I've been to it many times, and it's just a perfect fall day. The leaves are down, and almost all of them are down. It's sunny and crisp. Very nice.
Fantastic. So you probably haven't had a chance to actually kind of settle into your new place, but you've just moved from Los Angeles to Nashville. How many days have you been in the new home?
Yes, I managed to get home for about 5 or 6 days to my new house.
Okay.
After living in LA for 32 years, I went to decided to move to Nashville, and it's quite a big change, but it's great. It's peaceful and beautiful, and no litter, crime, graffiti. Well, there's some somewhere, but it's pretty hard to find as opposed to LA, which I still love very much. But it's kind of in a sad state these days. And so my wife and I decided to make a move and take our kitty cat to Nashville.
Nice. Well, I'm sure LA is still going to be your home. Away from home, there's going to be a lot of business there and things like that, I would assume, too.
Absolutely. I'll probably be there more than I am now. I usually just use LA to get to LAX and fly to the gigs. So I'll probably be there more than I am presently.
That's true. So you're in Cologne, Germany right now, and you're playing tonight as well with Mr. Big. What other parts of the country, first of all, you're playing there tonight, and then what other parts of the country will you be seeing while you're on tour?
We travel after show to Sweden. It's a 14-hour bus ride, which I prefer over even a 15-minute flight, because being on the bus is great. It's a wonderful German bus, and it's clean and safe and beautiful and modern and really wonderful. So in order to fly with a band to check gear in, it's just a hellacious, terrible, dreadful process that takes about 2 hours. So I'm always happy to take a long bus ride as opposed to a flight. So we'll be in Sweden. Then we do... I think Denmark, the UK, some more in Germany, Spain, I think, Milan, Italy. I think we end in Birmingham, England, and fly back. And that's the end of Mr. for 2017. We have some more shows we're working on 2018, as well as Sons of Apollo, a new band, and a few other things for 2000.
You have a busy schedule, obviously, as everyone expects. I mean, you do so many projects that it's nice to keep busy. But that's one thing I was going to ask you about, too, was Sons of Apollo. It's only been about 2 weeks ago, or I guess 2 weeks ago Friday that it dropped on the 20th. What are your thoughts on the reviews that have come in? Like, I mean, I'm not sure what you went into thinking how it was going to do. You're obviously hopeful that it was going to be great. It's come off great. The reviews are great. What are your thoughts on the feedback from fans?
Well, it's a pleasure to play with Mike Portnoy and Derek and Ron Thal. Ron Bumblefoot is awesome. He's a wonderful player, and he knows every Van Halen song. So the jams are always fun to sound check and whatever we do. Yeah. And then Jess Soto on vocals, who was the lead singer for Yngwie on the Talas Yngwie tour, summer of '85, which precluded my move to Los Angeles and join in with Lee Roth. So good memories with everybody there. Wonderful bunch. Some high intensity in the studio, too, in a good way, in a positive way. So I know it's kind of Derek and Mike's game, and I'm happy they invited me along. So I wanted to do my best for them. When I find myself in a situation where it's not necessarily my band and my thing, sometimes that's a little pressure off me, because all I have to do really is do what they want me to do, as opposed to think it up, argue my point, and then try to get it done, and the million other things. quite nice, and I'm glad to do what I need to do to make the band sound as good as I can from the bass player's point of view. I'm using a bass song BEAT, the last 4 strings of a 5 or 6 string bass for I think the whole record pretty much. So it's quite a heavier tonality and sound, and it's a lot harder to play because that low B string is about a 135. It's like a clothesline, and so some of the licks are snappy and quick. So yeah, sort of doing that with those. It's a little bit of a challenge. I got through all it, but I'm real pleased with the reviews and real excited that we're going to play live.
Fantastic. I lost a little bit of you there. Hopefully we'll catch more of the Wi-Fi there, or the cellular data that you have there. So if I've lost you, I think we might have you back. We're good. That's the nice thing that you talked about as well too, is the fact that, you know, not necessarily your band, so the pressure is a little bit off of you. That's a very, very cool thing. But you've played in quite a few other super groups. You mentioned David Lee Roth.
Yeah, we're both breaking up a little bit.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay.
One more time, sorry.
No problem. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you were talking about, the David Lee Roth, but that's another super group. You're Winery Dogs. You're playing with Mr. Big, another super group. How is it different going into, say, like a progressive metal group like Sons of Apollo, as opposed to some of these other groups did you have to think a little differently or plan or prepare any differently?
No, I just kind of go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
We never really look at that much as super groups. It's just like it's the same as if we were in high school and we're friends and got together, and I know a drummer, I know a guitar player, and that's kind of how it is. It's only kind of at a different level.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But I just try to do what's necessary at the time, whether it's to be with you or I play kind of a McCartney-esque, hopefully, bass line or something a bit more complex. We did a remake of That's Life, the Frank Sinatra song. I almost said Frank Zappa. Frank Sinatra song on Eat 'Em and Smile. And, it's just basic bass, like it's on the record that Frank did, Sinatra.
Yep.
So, I've never really been assertive to try to have a certain thing or not. I'm just trying to do what's best for the song. Sometimes being a little aggressive and wacky is a good thing too. So, I roll with it.
The one thing I like, that's a very cool statement, what you said, that being wacky and also sometimes rolling with it, or just laying back. The talent level that's in that band, between all the guys that you mentioned, Derek, yourself, Mike, Ron, everyone that's in that band, how is it for each of you guys that as virtuosos on your own instruments to lay back but yet still make a statement? Like each of you guys make your statement, but you don't step on any toes. Tell us a little bit of the process involved there.
Well, I don't even think we even really need to make a statement so much as you really have to observe the other people around you. If Mike is doing kick, hat, snare, some little groove, I can't be flying all over. I got to kind of lock into that. If the keyboards are a little busy, I would automatically, instinctively pull back. If they go low, I'd kind of get out of their way. If the guitar player, it depends on, it's an ebb and flow. It comes and goes. You move in and get involved in what's going on, and sometimes you back up and get underneath it and hold it together. And so eventually it's kind of an instinct you need to have to make music. And if you've played enough songs, which I think is essential, we were in Hamburg for our last show where the Beatles started, and I've got all kinds of great bootlegs of them performing in Hamburg, playing all copy tunes, just like Van Halen did in their days.
Yes.
So I think it's important to know songs and how they work and how to do them in front of an audience. And when you can do that, again, I apologize to your readers or watchers, and I'm so close.
That's okay.
I can't hear too well.
No, it's okay.
Standing for 50 years in front of a bass amp, we'll do that to you.
Oh, I hear you.
But so it's just kind of it happens the way it does. There's no real methodology that gets followed or template that is can't be violated. It's liquid. It can be anything, really.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
It does. It totally does. There's a couple comments over in the chat as well, too, some things that you'll like to hear. Ian Guitarman says, Billy, Sons of Apollo is just an amazing album. Really enjoying the tunes, bringing prog and rock back. And James from Ottawa, over my side of the border here, says, Billy, what is your favorite memories of playing with David Lee Roth?
Well, thank you both. Hold on one second.
Sure thing.
Hey, Ange, could I trouble you to grab this because I'm one-handed? Thank you, bro. Thanks a lot. A lot of great memories. I'm going to be walking now, so I apologize if I fall apart.
No problem.
I'll go right to the back lounge and we'll hook up the network.
No problem.
Okay. Get in there. The day-to-day actual occurrence of being on tour here.
Hey, there you go. We're sharing it with our viewers. That's great.
Backing up. Nice German bus. They're very nice. Okay, here we go.
And we're still here, folks. We just may have lost Billy for a moment, but we'll see if we get signal, audio, and video back. We should have him. If not, we'll call him back for sure. And Randall Fisher says everything Billy plays on turns gold. That's right. He's definitely a master when it comes to that. Let's see if we have him. It looks like we may have froze. We'll give him a second. And believe it or not, folks, I'm running on no sleep. I didn't actually go to bed yet, so I think I'm on around 22 hours up. And actually, I don't think it looked too bad for... Oh, there we lost him. So I'm going to give him a call back. Try that back 1 second. Probably lost Wi-Fi or cellular data. They probably have Wi-Fi in their buses there too, so... At least on the tour bus, I should say. There we go.
Okay.
All right, we got you.
Here we are again.
Okay, yep. Just toggle video when you're free.
You hear me?
Yep, we got you. Audio, no problem.
Okay, I can't hear you yet. Wait a minute.
Okay. Check 1, 2, 1,
It's
2.
on. There we go.
All right, there we go.
How's that?
That is perfect. That's great. Very good. You at the back of the bus?
So now we're in the back lounge.
All right, there you go. So yeah, you're just starting to touch base on the memories
so anyway,
of Dave.
There's so many great memories with Dave. We had an amazing time, summer of '85. Me, Steve, and Greg down in the basement of Dave's house, and that was where Van Halen rehearsed a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, there's a pile of old speakers and amp parts that I know were Ed's, and I didn't have the courage to say that, hey, Dave, you want to take some of that off your hands? But I left it all alone. It's probably still in there too. Who knows?
That would have been great. That would have been great to grab a couple
anyway,
pieces.
yeah, we hung out and as a gang, as friends, and we festival beer that was over and in the garage, and had gone skunk months earlier. Really gave us a lot of freedom on the Eating Smile. Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Just lost a little bit. I just heard the freedom of the eat 'em and smell. That's the last part I caught. We lost you a little bit there.
That's cool.
Can you hear me okay?
It was all great.
Good.
It was all good. Excellent.
Fantastic. I know you're a big fan of Greg Renoff's book, Van Halen Rising, and there's a lot of good books out there right now on Van Halen. Knowles just put his book out as well, too. You've read Van Halen Rising, yeah. I'm sure. And what were your thoughts on that book?
Great read.
Were there any takeaways from that you really enjoyed? We may have lost Billy again. We're going to try it in just a moment. Bear with us, folks. We're going to try to get Billy back there again, too. Let me see here. Ian Guitarman says, Haken are a UK-based prog band similar style to Sons. I did not know that. It's something I just learned. Okay, we lost Billy. I'm going to try him back in a second. Mike's Music Online says, great job, dude. Randall Fisher, here we go. Billy's calling me back. 1 second. Okay, we got you back.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, you know what? You want to go with just audio for a little while until we get to the venue, and then I can put the video on?
Let's do that. That works totally. Yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
Let me go over here. That's totally fine with me. So we were talking about Greg Renoff's book.
Yeah, I just loved it because it was really, there was no dirt and no nonsense and none of the negativity. It was just really a really sweet and charming history of the guys we know and love in Van Halen and what surrounded them and how it all happened. I just thought it was a really great treatment of a time, because we all hate to hear any negatives, because you see the band on stage, you hear them on record, you're thinking, wow, these guys are having a blast and they're all buzzed and it's fantastic and they're partying together and playing. That was the impression I had, and that's still the impression I have in my mind. And I'm sure that happened a lot, and sometimes people tend to focus on the negative, unfortunately, in this world. So it's I think Greg just did a wonderful job of really painting a picture of how I believe, and how I really want to believe how it was. I think he was very accurate too. Wonderful guy.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of negative information out there about any band, and there's no need to lead somebody by the hand and bring them to the negative. We all have our memories, like you said. You picture your superheroes, and in this case, our superheroes are Eddie Van Halen and the rest of the guys in the band, and we want to hang on to that memory. And like Kiss, example, I was telling you about Kiss off the air, was one of my first heroes as well too. No one wants to look at Kiss as not the superhero that they were years ago. So and he did a really good job. He was like the fifth member of Van Halen. It made you feel like you're in the backyard parties, up and down, all over.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so he did a really good job.
I just read Noel Monk's book too, and I remember Noel. He was he was the manager when Talas opened up for Van Halen in 1980.
Right.
And we got in touch with each other over Facebook, and we've communicated back and forth a little bit. And I understand, and I think Noel's book was probably an accurate representation. But then again, we all have our good days and bad days, and you never know what someone else is thinking unless you're actually inside their own head.
That's right.
So, it's one man's point of view. I believe he was honest, and I believe he was accurate. But I do believe there are, three sides to the story as usual.
That's right.
But it was an interesting book. I enjoyed it very much, and I'm glad to still be in touch with Noel.
Yeah, I just actually spoke with him on Facebook the other day as well too, and I've been thinking about having him on the show. I'd like to have him on the show. However, I have to be delicate with it, and I want to see how I'm going to approach it. I have to come at a different angle with that one because, there's some things that are said in the book that I just don't really necessarily want to air on the air, and I'm not saying that's anything wrong with what he said. But, we like to try to keep everything positive, and you can dance around that. It can be taken a little out of context. So I'm going to really work on that one before I bring it to the table. And I think it might be a cool interview if I can put it together. But yeah.
I agree with your point of view 100% because as we said, there's negatives to everybody's, to Mother Teresa. There's websites that don't like her.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect in this world. But,
that's right.
I think that you're looking at it in exactly the correct way.
Yeah, and I mean he did a great job. I mean, as a fan of literature, I think and especially bios on bands, I liked it. I did like it a lot. The writing was, I had heard a lot of people say they didn't like the writing, and I think the writing was good. At the end of it, I listened to it on the books on tape kind of deal, the audio book, and I consumed it in about a week. And at the end of it, it was kind of like, I kind of felt at the end, without giving any of it away, is like when I thought Star Wars was over as a kid and there was no more Star Wars. And it was like, I kind of had that feeling, that sunk in kind of, really the pit of my stomach, you know what I mean? But, they're still around. It's just a different Van Halen today. And like we were talking off the air too, Eddie's healthy and the band's healthy. They're smiling. That's a good thing. So even if we don't have any more music, which hopefully we will, but, they've given us a great run, some great records. A great contribution to rock and roll, so we're very lucky. But here's something I want to throw at you. This is kind of funny. We're kind of having an ongoing argument between members of your band, between the five guys in your band. Everyone professes to be the biggest Van Halen fan, and on Twitter, I think it was yesterday, Derek and Jeff were talking back and forth. Jeff says, "Well, I know the most about Van Halen in the whole band." And I'm like, "Well, I think Derek thinks he does, and I know Mike's a fan." So, and obviously Ron was on the show a couple nights back and really loving Eddie Van Halen. You've played with Van Halen on tour. Who's the biggest fan? Who do you think? Let's put the rumors to rest.
Well, it's tough to beat Mike Portnoy in fandom. I mean, he's a relentless pursuer of the things that interest him. The only feather in my cap is I think I'm the only person in the world that has ever played with every member of Van Halen.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So you have that.
So I played with Dave, of course, jammed with Eddie, went to the house and jammed with Eddie and Alex, did shows with Michael Anthony for Ampeg back at the NAMM show.
Right.
Did a Who tour with Mike Portnoy and Gary Sharon. And then I didn't play music with Wolfie. I also jammed with Sammy at a rock and roll fantasy camp.
Okay.
I got up and played Space Station No. 5 with him. It was a high point of my life. I loved that Montrose record. And then I didn't play music with Wolfie, but when I played with Ed in Chicago for the Jason Becker benefit, he was kind enough to let me fly back with him, and his son was with him. And Ed wanted to sleep, so I kind of took Wolfie to the side. We got some paper. He was a little tiny kid at the time. And we did some number games and some letter games and drew animals and stuff like that. So I played with Wolfie, but not music. So
I love that.
I'm the only guy that's ever played with all members of Van Halen. So,
okay.
But yeah, I think Mike Portnoy might have a speak. But Scott Soto does an amazing David Lee Roth impression.
He does.
Vocally, too, I got to say.
Oh, I'll have to check that out. He's coming up on Wednesday. So, and I got to get Mike on here soon, too. We'll get everyone's fair share. They can say, okay, well, I'm the biggest fan. I do think you've got him beat, though. Mike might be a bigger fan, but I think you've got more street cred.
Well, alrighty then.
I'm glad you mentioned Wolfgang too, because here's a question, 2 questions for you about Wolfgang. Number one, Derek was, I don't know if he even told you this, but if you were unavailable, the second call was going to be Wolfgang to try out for Sons of Apollo. How do you think he would have, like, if you were on tour somewhere else and just couldn't do it, how do you think he would have fit in if he was able to, if he accepted the gig?
Well, probably pretty good. I think it's probably in his DNA there to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard a couple of YouTube things of him playing, and he seemed to have it very, very together.
Yeah.
So, I'm a believer that there's nothing I do that somebody else can't do. I mean, anything I can do, you can do. Might take a little while, but there's nothing I do you can't do. So I'm sure Wolfie having that in his DNA, his dad's drive, if he does in fact have that, I'm sure he could pull that off with a little work, but it could be done.
Exactly. Yeah, he's really got a future ahead of him. Drums, guitar, bass. I mean, everything he's doing. I'm really looking forward to his new solo record. There are a couple. There's some questions over in the chat. There's one here from actually Mike's Music Online, who's one of my show sponsors, Mike Palermo, and from Palermo Guitars, built some beautiful guitars. He says, "How did Billy get the call? Tommy Henriksen tried out at the same time and lost out." Now, I'm not sure if Mike's referring to Sons or Mike. If you're still there, maybe you can comment. Did you know anything about Tommy Henriksen trying out for a gig? Is that for Sons, or do you know that?
No.
He's with Alice Cooper,
No,
right?
I don't. I know that we did the PSMS thing with Tony McAlpine,
mm-hmm.
and Sons of Apollo was to some degree an extension of that, with vocals, of course. And I initially, Mike, Derek, and I were going to kind of, do a band and then get some other guys. But then I was so busy, I think Mike and Derek decided, well, why don't we run it and have you join us? And I said, that's perfectly fine with me. So because they have a vision and they want to do what they want to do, and I think it's a good vision, and the album speaks for itself, and that really is Mike and Derek's baby, that record.
Mm-hmm.
They to a large degree, that's their creative force, and I'm glad to be a part of that. So, but I didn't know of anyone else trying out or playing. If they did, well,
I
wish him well.
No, this is he just clarified now. He said for Dave's band. So, I guess Tommy Henriksen tried out for Dave's band. So there you go. Gotcha. So it was a different band altogether.
He may have later, but as far as I know, I was the first guy Dave called. He did do a little jam with John Sykes.
I heard about that.
And he had a tape of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a couple of little pieces there, but I don't know of any other bass player. And I went out the day before the first show on the Yngwie Talas tour, went to Dave's house, and under the guise that I was going to be in his movie, which I didn't quite understand.
Mm-hmm.
And Dave said, yeah, there's a movie, but the whole point of it is I want to start a band. I want you to be a bass player, and we'll find a guitar player, and we'll find a drummer, and we'll go from there. And I said, I'm in. And I didn't know if, and I don't know if Dave, we didn't do much of a tryout of anything. I know he was interested in Steve Stevens initially more than anyone else as guitarist.
Wow.
That didn't work out, so I mentioned to Dave, I know another Steve, because I just talked with Steve Vai. We were on the same label. We actually were planning on maybe doing something together anyway.
Nice.
So I ran into Steve, and I couldn't tell him because I was sworn to secrecy. I said, "Oh, Steve, there might be something coming up you might be interested in." And Steve said, "I think I know what it is," but neither one of us kind of acknowledged what we knew.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, Ted Templeman confirmed that he really liked Steve Vai's playing also. And Steve Stevens would have been great too, but I think Steve Vai had that Zappa-esque sense of humor that really works well with Dave.
Yeah.
That seemed to go better. But I don't know that there were anyone else really tried out, so to speak.
Okay.
But I may be wrong. I don't know.
No, I do think you're right too. With I love Steve Stevens to death too. Phenomenal. But I think the charisma that all you guys had together, it's one of those things where you can look at any band and what if, but there's certain things that work. Like you've been quoted before for saying Van Halen, the original lineup was Van Halen. And same with you guys with Dave Lee Roth, with, Greg and drums and, just the package that you had was perfect. And it's hard to imagine it any other way.
Yeah, I'm the same. Greg's personality and drumming skills and just his overall vibe, he was the perfect guy. We knew it the moment he walked in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never met him before, I didn't know him, but the moment Greg walked in, Steve and I looked at each other. We knew he was the guy. He didn't even play yet. We just knew that was the guy. And it's funny, through the years of playing in clubs back in the old days, I come off the stage. There weren't dressing rooms. You just come off the stage into the crowd and talk with people and hang out. And it became a thing. And we tested it several times, and it never failed. You could tell how good a player was just by talking to him within the first couple of sentences. You didn't really even need to hear him play.
Wow.
Which I thought was pretty amazing. And I was almost never wrong on that. So as soon as Greg walked in and sat behind the kit, we kind of knew that he's the guy.
Nice.
And we tried out some great players, and so about 40 people. But Steve and I did the drum tryouts for Dave. And but yeah, there was a personality thing that just kind of fit together with everybody, and once in a while you roll the dice and your number comes up.
That's nice. That's perfect. Over in the chat, Poison Ivy Grows here says, yes, great book for sure, referring to Greg's Van Halen Rising. Randall Fisher says, rock stars have Wi-Fi problems too. See, we're not just the average people. Rock stars have Wi-Fi problems too. Randall Fisher's commenting as well. Great books. James from Ottawa says, Billy, I'm really enjoying The Fell. How did that tour go, and how do you enjoy playing with Randy Cooke?
Randy Cooke has got a pocket as a drummer. He's just automatic. I've seen him play with Phil X a bunch of times, used him on some sessions. Just great. Bass and drums are what it's all about, and when I find a drummer like that, I'm supremely happy. He's incredible. He's a fellow Canadian there, of course, too. And Mike Krampus, great player and great songwriter, producer, overall talent. Just has a great vision. We used Anthony De La Torre on vocals, who was is, of course, a movie star, but he's also a wonderful kid and a great singer. Very nice guy. A real straight shooter. Easy to deal with, very much. And so it was just kind of a trial run to see how things would roll. And was glad to go up and play in Canada again. I haven't played much in Canada. Used to play there all the time back when I lived in Buffalo. So it was nice to go back up. I saw a lot of friends I hadn't seen in a long, long time. So it was a good little run. So we'll probably do some more shows next year, and the record sounds great.
Well,
the record is really excellent. Mike Krampus did an amazing job on production. So looking forward to that.
What parts did you stop in over here in Canada?
Say again?
What parts of Canada did you tour the last time you were here?
We did Oshawa, Toronto, and one other city. I forgot.
Well, you're close. You're close to me, anyways.
Remember.
Yeah, Oshawa will be close to James, who is commenting there, and so he's up in Ottawa. So yeah, and Toronto is very close to me. Very cool. So Pro Rock Guitar, Jim Clark, prorockguitar.com, jumping in, says great stuff. Eric, hey Billy, he's over there in the UK. He's an instructor, great guitar player. Bristol Perry's jumping in, saying, what's up, Eric? And Ron Padgett says, does Billy still keep in touch with Steve Vai, and will they do anything together again? There was always that rumor that there was going to be the Eat 'em and Smile reunion, and I know you guys all got together in the club, minus, I don't know if Dave showed up for that one, but do you still talk to Steve, and anything coming up in the future?
Sure. Steve's like a brother to me. We talk often. His wife and my wife are friends. We're all friends, and it's we have no plans at this point to do anything. Steve and I and Greg and Brett Tuggle on keyboards, we were all on hold for quite a while there to see if Dave wanted to do something, because he said he did. we all know the vagaries of life. Other things come up, so we haven't heard from them. But if we do, all of us are into doing it.
Nice.
We got together with Dave that night in the club. Unfortunately, the club got shut down by the fire department. But the best thing about that night is we got to hang out.
Yeah.
Me, Dave, Steve, Greg, and Brett, and we had a riot. It was fantastic. Just like the old days, talking and hanging and telling stories in the back while the fire department cleared the building.
Yeah.
So, but it was just great to see Dave and see all of us together. I posted a photo of us together on my Facebook and whatnot. So, yeah, I would love to do Eat 'em Smile anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Rehearsed or unrehearsed, I'm sure we could get up and do the show. So
For sure.
We'll see. And to play with Steve anytime, anywhere is always a joy. So I'm sure we'll be doing something together again.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice to see. And you know what? It was probably a blessing in disguise. I hate to say it it wasn't a blessing for the fans because they were probably just thrilled to death to see you guys reunite. But it's probably a blessing for you guys because there was no pressure, there was no music, just as you said, conversation, and you can get more accomplished that way without instead of having a 15-minute conversation and hopping on the stage, you guys actually had some quality time together. So I'm happy for you guys that transpired.
Very, very true. Yeah, we did get a chance to hang, which is wonderful. And it was cool about the Lucky Strike Jam in LA. There's no sound check, no rehearsal, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You go up on stage, no pedals, can't plug anything in.
Yep.
Get up on stage, sing and play, and get off. The next band goes up. And that was the perfect situation to do the Eat 'em Smile reunion under, I thought, if it would have happened. Because we would have just gone up, plugged into whatever bass amp's there. Steve's plugged into whatever guitar amp is there. Greg is behind whatever drums. And who knows about the monitors of the PA or lights or sound or anything. Just go up there and do it. And that's kind of the spirit we had in that band anyway. We just we could go up and do it. We didn't need to be pampered or have everything exactly perfect to do a show. So unfortunately it didn't happen. But as you said, and I agree, we got to do some quality hang time, which was worth its weight in platinum shavings to me.
I love that. That's good. Very good. Let me see. So you mentioned, I talked about Phil X. So Randall Fisher says, how is it playing with the new players today, such as Phil X?
Phil is a phenomenon of nature. What a superstar. I love his singing, his playing, his personality, his tone, his choice of notes. A wonderful guy. I've jammed with him a bunch, and I hope to play more regularly with him someday. I know he's busy with Bon Jovi now. So glad he got a gig like that because the world needs to know about Phil X. He's just a supreme talent and a wonderful guy, and it's an honor to know him. He's really great.
He is good. And actually, my former bass player that had my band, he turned me on to Phil back in the day when Phil had the band Powder going. Remember Powder?
I saw them several times. Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
They should have been huge.
Yep.
It's one of those bands that just should have been giant. And who knows?
Yeah, he gave it a really good run with that. It's just one of those things that wasn't meant to be. I mean, they were popular in the clubs. It just didn't really necessarily huge breakout. But I think I still have a Powder T-shirt kicking around here somewhere. We did a really good job. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about, you were quoted in another interview a while back, too, by saying about Van Halen. Even Van Halen at their very, very worst were spectacular. So you had the opportunity in 1980 on the tour with them, with Talas. What was it like kind of, obviously it's going to be a highlight of your lifetime touring with them, but what was it like watching those guys from the side of the stage and any mental notes that you might have taken from the band while on that tour? Did I lose you? Can you still hear me there, Billy? I might have lost him.
Hello.
Hey, can you still hear me?
Oh, yeah. I think I'm back.
Okay, good. Yeah, my question was...
Sorry.
No problem. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Okay, no problem. So when you're on the tour in 1980 with obviously the Talas opening for Van Halen, what was it like kind of watching those guys every night after night from the side of the stage? Did you have any mental notes that you picked up from the band, or just what was it like even as a fan being that close to the band night after night?
It was like getting a PhD in show business.
There you go.
It was brilliant. On their worst night, they were only magnificent.
Yes.
They were on, and they were awesome. And they had it down to a science. It was like a military operation. They would get in and just a 1980 version of Van Halen, unbelievable, unreal. We would go out and watch almost every single night and laugh at the jokes as though we had never heard them before every time, even though they're the same. When we realized night to night, Dave is kind of doing the same shtick.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, it dawned on us, Showbiz 101, Of course, you don't want to improvise while you're up there. You want to, if you got a joke that works, you do it the next night too. It's a whole different crowd, and just these great simple things, but great revelations about how to do it, how to be in front of a crowd. And Ed was just on fire every night, and I got to go like in the front between the stage and the security barrier sometimes, and I'd crouch down there and watch them and stuff. And what a grandmaster, everybody. And they were very kind to us. They were really cool. A lot of opening acts get screwed. It happens a lot, but they were great to us. Nice. And just a life-changing experience.
I love it. I always laugh too. When you talk about the scripting, that's obviously very, very cool. They script it so it's the shtick, as you say, of David Lee Roth. And there'd be times where David Lee Roth on the various tours, you'd say, how's everyone doing tonight in Cleveland? And then Eddie would say, no, Cleveland was last night. You know what I mean? And they'd forget. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Very good. The one question I wanted to ask you as well too is, now I haven't been told if this is a fact or not, but you've been asked about this a million times. Were you asked at one time to join Van Halen?
Yeah, I in several different ways through the years it's happened a couple times, maybe 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I do know of other bass players who were also spoken to about joining the band.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Tim Bogert was at one point, and maybe even Jeff Berlin at one point.
Wow.
Both Tim and Jeff have told me that. I have no reason not to believe them.
Sure.
We at the end of that tour in 1980, Ed tore. He just gotten a card from Valerie, like a Hallmark card, and I thought it was kind of funny that he ripped the bottom of it off, wrote his number on it, and said, "Here's my number. Don't tell Mike I gave it to you."
Uh-oh. And
so I in my mind, I'm spinning like, holy shit, what could this mean? I mean, holy cow, what could this mean? Sorry.
That's okay.
So we spoke, and eventually they came on tour again. They played in Buffalo. I went up to Ed's room to listen to some music and stuff, and he said, "What would you do if I asked you to join Van Halen?" I said, "I'd say, what flight do you want me on?" And we shook hands.
Wow.
And then I saw him a couple shows later in Toronto. I went up because we just finished recording a record in Toronto at Phase One Studios, Talas record, to sink your teeth into that record. And I saw Dave, and Dave said to me, "Yeah, I heard you were talking with Ed. We'll be talking to you about all this soon." And so I thought, wow, it's really happening. So I kept my mouth shut, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sure enough, as the months went by and they were off tour, I finally got a hold of Ed on the phone. He goes, I don't know if we're really ready to make that change, but thanks anyway. But we talked about it. We kind of want to stick with the program. I said, "Oh, that's cool, man. That's great." So, they did talk with me about it. Now, through the years, I want to clarify,
mm-hmm.
I love Michael Anthony. He's a great player. He's a Van Halen bass player. And I was torn from the beginning to think, well, wait, I don't want to destroy my favorite band, but I sure want to play in it too,
mm-hmm.
So it was tough. And I think in the end, no offense to Ed or Al or Dave, but I think they may have been looking to economize, because they could have hired me as a sideman,
mm-hmm.
paid me, $1,000 a month, and I would have thought I was in heaven.
Sure.
Where Michael got 25% of everything. And after reading Noel's book, I think even more so now that that's true,
mm-hmm.
that they were just kind of looking to, it's a business and you got to make the best you can.
Streamline.
In their minds, they had a different point of view of Michael's contribution. They want to maybe put him on a different pay scale.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't agree with that, but that's their band and their life and their business. So
mm-hmm.
that's how it went down. And I think in the end, Michael is irreplaceable as the bass player for Van Halen. I was greatly honored to have ever even been considered in whatever capacity. But I think, and I kept quiet about it for years and years. I never really spoke about it. Even while I was with Dave, I
mm-hmm.
never said anything about it, because I love Michael, and I didn't want to make it look like, they were thinking of replacing him for any other reason other than, I think it was more of a business decision than anything else. Though they seem to be positive towards my playing, which I take again as a great compliment and an honor. But it's a tough spot for me because I love Michael and he's a bass player, and it's a great honor that I was asked, but in a way, I'm glad it didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I thought that was true. I was 100% sure it was true, but I didn't want to quote anything before I heard it from your mouth. So that being said, so you were kind of asked, indirectly asked, if you were in the band, how would Billy Sheehan approach Van Halen and let Van Halen still sound like Van Halen? Like, I know you can play back in the pocket, but what would you have done? Just how do you think you would have approached it?
Well, I probably would have stuck to what they wanted me to do, and said to them, if there's anything more you want, just let me know and I'll do it, rather than try to fly all over the stage and do my nonsense. It's an established band, and there's records, and that's how they sound, and that's probably how they should sound. So for me to play those songs live, I would have to play very closely to what's on the record, I believe. Now that's what I'm saying now. Back then I might have been stupid and gone off and done the wrong thing and gotten thrown out the next week. Who knows? Yeah. But with age there is wisdom, we hope. It's a big what if there. Yeah. And again, I love that. I love Van Halen. That's my band. That really was such a big part of my life. And the whole world was skinny tie and haircut 100, and suddenly this bulldozer called Van Halen came along and just changed the whole landscape. So we all owe them a great debt. No offense, haircut 100.
There you go. No, very well said. And you are a class act that way too, because you're the type of guy that can kind of a chameleon. You pop into any situation. You can play your ass off, but at the same time, you don't always have to.
Yeah, I think it's important to do what you need to do for the song. I grew up playing in a copy band, and it's got to sound kind of like the song, or the dancers clear the dance floor and the club owner gets upset. There's an interesting parallel history with Van Halen. Our set lists were almost the same. Okay. We did almost the same copy tunes, Funk 49 and all the James Gang stuff, and we so many songs we did that were the same on our set list. When I got the old Van Halen Club Days bootlegs that I have, it's funny.
You collect a lot of the boots, do you?
I got a great collection of a lot of rare stuff, alternative takes of a lot of different artists. The Van Halen stuff is certainly cherished too. And that's why back in the day I got some great stuff where Michael Anthony's just killing on bass. He's just awesome. He's just great, awesome bass player. So again, not to refer back to that, but that's just as an addition.
No, for sure. And I know Mike's a big collector of that stuff too. He gets fans that send Van Halen stuff to him all the time. And I love the old bootlegs. But I like bootlegs of any band, and not to take away money from the band, but I would rather hear sometimes a bootleg than some of these overly polished, re-overdubbed live albums. I mean, you just really hear the band and their good days and their bad days and everywhere in between. And as you would say, too, some of the ones you collect, we sometimes have different audience versions, like soundboard, sometimes front row. It's nice to collect this stuff.
I love it. Actually, the very first Mr. Big live thing we did was called Raw Like Sushi. We were on the Rush tour. And we had already played in Japan, but Japan wanted a live album as a holder until our next record came out. So from the board, they had a DAT, digital audio tape. It cost us $7.95, and they just taped the show live, and we couldn't overdub because it was on a DAT. You can't overdub that.
Just stereo mix.
And we sent them, and that was the live record.
Wow.
It was our opening slot for Rush from the DAT tape, which the whole budget for that, we didn't even pay the front house mixer. I think it was Brad Maddox. Now he's come to be quite a famous front house mixer now. He was the monitor mixer for Rush, and he mixed us for front house. We paid him a couple extra $100 or something, but he did the mix, and so our budget for the record was $7.95. And when it got released in Japan, I don't know how many records it sold, but it sold 350,000 copies in Korea alone. So I think we recouped on that record. Not that we saw any of that money, but somebody sure did.
That's quite the budget. That is quite the budget. I love it. Ian Guitar Man over in the chat says, what music do you listen to while on tour, or do you prefer to read a book for a break?
I read a lot. I'm a voracious reader of all types of books and all kinds of subjects, mostly hard science and nonfiction, but I do occasionally get into some fiction and some novels. If I do listen to music, I listen to a lot of classical music. And Quite a wide array. My iTunes collection is about 2 terabytes.
Oh,
and it's all over the map. I've got some great stuff and some great collections of stuff, all kinds of music. Probably the most rock, second classical, third is world music and a lot of crazy stuff, and then a lot of garage rock from the '60s, bootlegs, some jazz in there, and really a cornucopia of music and strange thing. And I specialize in collecting some of the worst music you'll ever hear in your life too. I've got some incredibly bad stuff that always gets every party going when I pull that stuff out.
nice, a very nice mix, and 2 terabytes of tunes. That's quite a bit. I have like one of those old iPods, like the little 40 giggers, and I thought that was a lot.
Right.
Vintage Sounds from the chat says, how about Winery Dogs with Richie or any other work going on right now, Billy?
Well, Winery Dogs is really that's my favorite band. I love Mr. Big. It's my heart and soul. I love playing with us, but for me, the Winery Dogs really does kind of bring it all together of everything I've done in my life. I love that band, and we'll be doing some stuff later on. I'm going to start writing. Rather than just do album tour, we took some time to live a little life and go back and approach it like we did the very first record again, where we get together in a room with a lot of life experience, haven't seen each other for a couple of months or longer, and really just be fresh again, as opposed to getting in that cycle of, we're done with the tour, let's start the next record.
Yeah.
We're done with that tour, let's start the next record. So in the meantime, Sons of Apollo is going to be a blast. I love that record. I love playing with those guys. But Winery Dogs for me is really a very special thing. And so many of my friends say the same thing that have known me since back in the Buffalo days. Hey, that Winery Dogs, yeah, they go, that's the one. That's the one. I go, yeah, I know. I really love it. So
that's
I
cool.
love working with Richie and with Mike as well. So
very close.
More to come.
Good. That's really good to hear, for sure. A couple other people jumping in the chat as well, too. David Ennis is jumping in. Spanky McAllister saying hi to us both. Craig Rundles, guitar player, says, and a friend of mine says, I'm curious what he thought about Paul Gilbert when he first heard him. So you meeting Paul Gilbert the first time, and what was that impression like?
Well, Paul opened up for Talas when we played Stage 1 in Pittsburgh, different than the Stage 1 in Buffalo. They were both called the same. And I remember a tall kid, before he opened up, he was in the audience often. And the stage is only about 12 inches high. And I'm standing right there, and there was this tall kid standing right in front of me all the time. And that was Paul Gilbert. And I remember I did my very first bass clinic ever in Pittsburgh on a day off. And Paul was at my very first clinic before he played around a lot. Wow. So eventually they opened up for us. And they had a little tiny dressing room at the side of the stage, which wasn't really a dressing room. It was kind of a DJ booth. And I was in there while they were playing. And I remember hearing, wow, who's that guitar player? That kid is pretty good. And it was Paul. So I knew him and we spoke a little bit, but then when I went out to LA, he had already been out there because he went to Musicians Institute. And then there was a guitar contest one night at Gazzari's on Sunset Boulevard, the famous Gazzari's, and Paul was one of the contestants. So myself and the bass player from Whitesnake, Neil Murray.
Okay.
I think that was his name. He was another judge and somebody else. And as the kids are coming up to play, I go, hey, you guys, get ready. Wait to see this Paul Gilbert kid play. And sure enough, Paul got up there, blew everybody away, and of course he won. And then, so my first impression from Paul, right from the beginning, was that he was dedicated. He had a fire lit under him from the very beginning, and he hit it hard, and he was a noticeable talent from the very, very beginning. And now, more than ever, Paul it hasn't let up one iota for his drive and perseverance of his understanding of music and his ability to play all kinds of things. We're quite a phenomenon.
I find him, I don't know the man at all. I've never met Paul, but I find him, just from impressions, as to be a very humble dude and a very nice guy.
Really. Easy to work with. Just a fountain of ideas, and you're stuck. Whoa, this chord change. What should we do now? Oh, let's try this. Oh, good idea. He's always got something to contribute. Always positive force,
and a joy to work with.
That's nice. Nice to have in any band for sure. James from Ottawa says, Billy, I've seen you play guitar live during a few shows with Mr. Big where you swap instruments. Do you ever plug an electric and shred away just for fun or recording, or maybe even at home?
Sure, I write a lot on guitar.
Mm-hmm.
To write on bass is it's I can write musical parts, and I've done a lot of writing on bass, but actually kind of write a song where you're singing, it kind of requires a little strumming and playing. So many times with an acoustic guitar and a bottle of wine and a bunch of people sitting around, we'll go for hours of Beach Boys, Three Dog Night, Grand Funk Railroad, Van Halen, you name it, playing copy tunes and singing and harmonizing. But electric guitar too. I enjoy understanding it more because that's the other instrument that I'm working with. So the better I can speak that language, the better I can communicate to that guitar player about, what should be or what could be. Same with drums. I try to learn as much as I can about drums and drumming, because the more, as a bass player, the more you know that language, the better you'll be able to converse in it. So two important instruments to me that I try to understand more about, so that the final product will be better.
Nice. Very well said. Bruce Anderson's jumping in, says, good morning, everyone. Getting an early start, or is it a late night? Oh, it's a late night for me. I haven't even gone to sleep yet. Let me see here. Who else we got? Ian Guitarman says, wow, thanks, just as I imagined. And Bruce says, thanks for going the extra mile for us, Eric. No problem. No problem whatsoever. Now, question for you. And I talked to Rudy Sarzo last week. He was on, which another great, one of my childhood bass heroes, like yourself as well too. And
dear friend of mine, wonderful guy. What a great guy. I love Rudy.
Yeah. Well, one of the things he said is he's when he got into the business, he didn't have aspirations of being a rock star and being wealthy and rich and famous. He just wanted to make enough money that he could continue to do what he liked doing every day, was playing bass, keep some food on the table, maybe make more money the next day to go out and do it one more night. And I think I know the answer to this because you've kind of hinted at it already. But what do you think has been the secret for you, or the catalyst in you being as in demand as you are, and as so well received with countless bands?
Well, thank you. I love to play. Mm-hmm. I love music, and I'll play, in a little club with 3 waitresses and 2 customers, if that's the case, mm-hmm. Or in any situation. I really love music, and I love to play. And I got up this morning before we began this call, and I played for about a half an hour on bass, and worked out, and found some new things that I never knew before. Every
nice.
Time I play, I discover some new thing, and it's the adventure really does never end, and there's always another curve just up ahead. You get around it, and you see a whole new vista in front of you, and that never ends. I played for over 50 years, and that never ends. I had a kid write to me years ago, so I've been playing bass for 2 years, and I'm bored. What should I do? And I wrote back, quit.
Yeah,
it ain't your thing, bro. And I've been playing for 50, and I'm still overwhelmed at how much more there is. So yeah, similarly, I was never really looking. That's why a lot of people will comment, rock star, on a comment on my Facebook, and I always say, no. I'm a musician. I am not a rock star, and that's the way I look at it. I'm a craftsman. I'm a working man. I do that. The bass is my tool, and I'm up there doing my job. And my job is to entertain, provide music, provide people with an escape or something to inspire them. That's my job. I was never really looking at it to be rich or famous ever.
Right.
And I'm really neither. I mean, my bills are paid, and some people know who I am. So I think maybe if I was any more famous, it might be a pain in the ass. So
yeah.
Maybe it worked out just right.
It's a comfort zone.
It's funny.
Yeah. And I have a feeling too, just like I said to Rudy, I said, do you ever foresee yourself retiring? And I said, I have a feeling when he retires, whenever that day comes, the same with you, you both will probably play more bass than you're playing now, being retired, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would set up a little spot and get up there and go 2 hours in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and then play till I go to bed. So, but I love to perform live, though. That's really mm-hmm. Where my blood is. So that's how I started, and that's how Talas started. We did 3 complete shows in one day. We did 21 nights in a row once, and it really, once you do that, it just becomes your natural thing, and that's what I love the most.
Wicked. I love it. Randall Fisher in the chat saying, I agree, Mr. Bruce Eric is setting the bar high this week. It's been a fun week this week for sure. It's a busy one. I usually only do shows once a week, but it's been really nice. Max Carton says, Winery Dogs' self-titled album was an awesome album. I think a lot of the people picked up an instrument thanks to that album. Let me see. In my opinion, it will be what for most guys, what Van Halen won, and Highway to Hell for AC/DC and stuff like that. So that is quite the compliment.
That is, because Highway to Hell, one of the greatest records ever made. Van Halen won, likewise. And it's funny, I've made a lot of records, but there's only a couple of them that when my friends come over, I want to play them my new record. One was Eat 'Em and Smile.
Okay, great.
The other one was Mr. Big Lean Into It. And the third one was definitely the first Winery Dogs record. People would come over and I go, you got to hear this, check it out. So excited about that record and what it did. And if it's inspiring to anyone else, that's icing on the cake.
That's great. I love it. I've got a buddy here too, Dwayne Stevens. He's an old childhood friend of mine. He's moved away. He's out in the West Coast now, but he was my first bass player ever in a band. And he kind of looks up to you like I look up to Eddie Van Halen. So if that's any kind of, and you know how much I look up to Eddie Van Halen, and he may be watching right now, but he's kind of adopted your style. He's almost a clone of you. He's like your height, just an absolutely amazing bass player. So I just want to say hi for him, Dwayne Stevens.
And his name is what?
Dwayne Stevens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck, Dwayne.
He's doing well, and he actually manufactures basses under his own brand and stuff like that too. Just a great guy. I thought I'd say hi for him as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
So you mentioned Eat 'Em and Smile there real quickly here. I wanted to ask you a question about Dave. So last year on the tour with Van Halen, the critics were just tearing him a new one with his vocals. They're saying, Dave can't do it anymore and blah, blah, blah. I mean, Dave was never the most accomplished singer in the world, but now he's lost a little bit of it. But what would you say to the critics, the naysayers, that Dave doesn't have it anymore?
I think he does, and I do think Dave kind of takes a punk rock kind of point of view and just kind of sings it the way he wants it, and rather than doing it just like the record. I would like to hear it like the record myself as a fan, but Dave's an artist and he can do his thing, and that's what he's chosen to do. And I think in a way it is there's an artistic integrity to that really takes some courage too, because I think he would get great critical acclaim to nail those records just like he did, and I think he could do it. But instead, he chose to make a left turn on purpose because he's Dave. And
that's right.
It's an interesting thing. And again, I would love to hear it sung the way it was sung, but Dave is always kind of like that. He was always kind of, just tossing some of the lyrics in, and it's kind of his approach was pretty kind of a punk rock way of going at it, which was unusual for a band like Van Halen to have kind of a punk rock sensibility. But as you see, they came up in LA just at the same time a lot of punk did, so it's an interesting kind of thing there. But I love Dave's voice. I think he's got a great voice, like the beginning to Ice Cream Man, and when you hear, I know that somebody put out years ago the vocal only track from Running with the Devil. So I'm sure many of our watchers and listeners have heard that. And I think when they originally put it out, somebody thought, this is a big on Dave. Listen how this track is, and he's doing all the woo, yeah, all that. But listen to that track; it is perfect.
He owned it.
There's no pitch correction; it didn't exist then.
That's right.
There was no pitch correction. He sang it, nailed it. The pitches are right on, and he kills. So it backfired on whoever thought they were kind of ridiculing Dave. People heard that and went, holy cow, he nailed it. Of course, there was some hilarious stuff on it, too, with all the hooting and hollering, which was funny. But that was Dave's thing, and I love his voice. I think Dave is really a great singer, but it's a character voice.
It is.
He's not Ronnie James Dio or Glenn Hughes by any stretch of the imagination, or Sammy Hagar.
No.
I mean, it's a different thing. And I love that he has the attitude that he won't be forced to do what other people insist that he does, which is a real kind of a rock and roll mentality and kind of a punk rock mentality. So again, I would prefer to hear him sing it the way I love it, but I get it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does, 100%. And here's something I'll ask you. You tell me if you agree with this or not. And this is a feather in Dave's cap. Many things I bring up on the show all the time. Like a lot of guitar players will talk about Eddie's guitar playing, and they a lot of people don't focus on the rhythm playing or they don't learn the rhythm playing because it's insane. And I attribute the swing to Van Halen's sound for three reasons. Number one, Eddie and Alex playing together 24/7 without a bass player back in the day when they're kids. Number two, their father, world talented musician. And number three, David Lee Roth. David Lee Roth was coming to the band, when the band was playing, like Deep Purple and, Black Sabbath and all this kind of stuff. And Dave comes to the band with R&B and some swing and some, the stuff to make people dance. And I think that had a lot to do with the success of the band and the swing sound.
I agree 100%. Hot for Teacher, that's swing.
Yeah.
That's a full-on swing. And swing separates the men from the boys.
Yes.
I know a very, very famous drummer who has a real tough time swinging. And I know we have Matt Starr, a drummer out with us with Mr. Big, is our drummer. Pat Torpey, unfortunately, he's got a health issue and can't play a full kit anymore.
Right.
And Matt is an amazing player, great rock drummer, but a lot of the swing finesse stuff, Pat had to kind of say, hold on a second, that's not exactly how that goes. And Matt, being a saint that he is, sat and listened attentively and allowed Pat to guide him with zero ego to do it, because the swing is that's a tough thing. And Pat is also a great swing player and understood the value of it. People that love drummers like Buddy Rich just understand that swing is or if you saw what was the movie with the drummer and the kid,
I know which one you mean.
The kid playing in the jazz band with a horrible teacher.
Yes. It slipped my mind too, but I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, someone will put it in the chat room.
Yeah, they will.
Anyway, that song that they used, that is the title of the movie, was a song by a guy named Don Ellis.
Okay.
Who was a trumpeter, I believe, and totally swinging huge big band. And so the swing is the thing that kid in the movie is trying to get right, that fast swing.
Yeah.
That is tough to do. You're playing groups of threes at high rate of speed, really tough, and they got to be exactly right or it's terrible. Yeah, Dave was a big proponent of that, I'm sure. But Alex managed to do a great swing.
He did.
So, it does separate the men from the boys when you can swing or not.
You watch Alex, and we watch his right hand on the ride, or the bell of the ride, and it's just amazing. That it's just amazing.
Yeah, he's quite a master at it.
I remember too. I had Brian Young, who played with David Lee Roth there, and when Dave went solo there for a while as well too. And talking about swing, Brian said to Dave Lee Roth one time, he said, "Hey Dave, why don't you do "I'm the One" with it's not on? Why don't you put that on the set list?" And Dave says, "Well, our last guitar player couldn't play it." And that, for any guitar player that hasn't tried that song, try playing "I'm the One." And if you want to see, that swing, it's
probably
insane.
One of my favorite Van Halen songs ever. It's got the best Dave scream ever. And I even told Ed one time, your solo on "I'm the One" is probably the best solo I've ever heard. He goes, "Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is my best one." It was funny. We laughed about it. But what a masterpiece. "On the One," just perfect. I love that song.
It is. Ron Pio in the chat says Whiplash. There you go. That's the name of the movie.
Whiplash. That's it.
Right.
That's it. Thank you, Ron.
Yes, thank you very, very much. You talked about the one young student that were, fan that said one time he wanted to, or you suggested just to quit because he's bored. What do you suggest for new, young, aspiring bass players? To starting out, they want to maybe have a career in music, playing bass. Maybe recommend some instruction, in music to listen to. Just maybe some tips that might help them.
Oh, well, you can always make a left turn. To sit down and play along with a record is a tried and true way to really move yourself in a different direction. So sit down with something that's way out of your range, something that you wouldn't expect to. Grab a Bob Marley record. Not my thing, not what I'm into, but can I do that? Let's see. And what's the bass in reggae all about? Okay, cool. Pick up a Sinatra record, Live at the Sands with the Count Basie Orchestra. Play along to that. Incredible. AC/DC, Back in Black. What a great record. What amazing bass playing. Simple as can be, but just so powerful. I don't know how many million records that record has sold, but it's a lot. It went platinum every year for decades. So they sold a lot of those. And, just make a left turn. Maybe get behind a drum kit and learn some beats and understand what that bass drum is doing. And know that that's the thing you got to follow. There's a million ways to skin a cat, and that's what I love about it. There's when you're in a corner
there's so many ways to get out of the corner, and each different way will take you in a different direction and lead you somewhere stylistically that no one else could really duplicate, because the path is so varied. Whatever path you take, it's going to be something different than what someone else did. It just by the law of averages, it'd be impossible for anybody to take the two same paths. And even if they did, their DNA is different anyway, so it's going to be different. But there's a lot of ways you can go about reinvigorating yourself and relighting the fire. Just go out and see a band, and if it's a horrible band, you hate them, and they're terrible, that could be a great source of inspiration. Go say, I want to be way better than that.
Exactly.
If it's an amazing band that blows you away and makes you want to quit, you say, well, give it a couple of days and get back at it, and try and reach it, try and top it, try and match it. So all kinds of ways. I believe sometimes you got to be as creative in your approach as you are as a player and a musician. You got to be as creative in how you practice and what you practice. Those things are important to do. Some people sit down and just play scales on an instrument and say, okay, I practice and I got nowhere. Well, that's not what you should be practicing then. You should be practicing something that challenges you, it's tough to do, that when you do it, you think, I suck. I can't do this. I do that. I do things that I can't do, and I work on them and work on them and work on them until I can. And it's a mountain to climb. But in the end, you plant your flag at the top, and then you look up and, oh, there's the other mountain. It's even bigger. And then you go off on that one.
Oh, I love it. I like the fact that you say too, multiple instruments too. And my young son here, he's only 11, Eric Jr., and he's multi-talented with many instruments. He's going to be blowing me away in 2 years from now or a year from now. And he just got his first bass a while back. I got him a Flea bass. He's a fan of Flea, and I mean he likes a lot of people. But we've had the vinyl for the Eat 'Em and Smile vinyl for a few months, and I started playing him that a while ago. Then when I told him that you were coming on the show, he only knew you from the Lee Roth album, great album to hear you on for the first time. But I said, okay, look, we're gonna start watching some videos, and I started showing him some bass solos of yours, and he was just like, what? That was, I think that was his his reaction was, what? I said, yeah, that's Mr. Billy Sheehan. So he's now a big fan, and there's inspiration that you've put on the fire under him. Just like you said, Paul Gilbert had fire under him. Now you put fire under his butt.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Give him my best, please. I'm glad
sure.
He's pursuing it.
I will for sure. Listen, you probably are getting probably close to your venue, probably ready to wrap up. Are you just about out of time there?
Yeah, let me check my battery. Hold on.
No problem.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good for a little while longer.
No problem. No problem.
Sure.
Vintage Sounds in the chat says, how does Billy like Stu Hamm on bass? And I'm a fan of Stu Hamm as well, too.
Stu is an amazing player, wonderful guy, very intelligent man. He actually turned me on to a couple of books and a couple of authors that I've enjoyed greatly. And we toured together on the bass tour, the Beat Times 3, me, myself, and I, and Jeff Berlin himself, and he, and Stu Hamm himself and himself. It was quite a riotous bass extravaganza. We had a blast together. It was very, very cool. But it was great to see Stu Hamm up close and Jeff Berlin up close. That was my payoff on that tour. But great player, wonderful guy, can do just about anything you need on a bass.
Wicked. I ran right by him and Tony Franklin, two other bass players I like. I like Stu a lot too, and I walked right by them both at NAMM and just didn't even say hi. It just was one of those things where they're getting to where they want to go, and I didn't bother them. But I wish I would have said hi now. I really enjoyed him on the Satriani tour, the San Francisco DVD that they did. What was that? I guess Live in San Francisco or something like that. He was really good with Joe.
Yeah, Stu's a great player in many different situations. He's adaptable, and you can always count on him to be to put in a bucket of awesomeness, no matter what he does.
Yeah. Here's a question when it comes to learning things about the business. I was one of these guys who halfway through my career before I retired, one band I joined taught me everything about the business that I needed to know. It was about image. It was about being professional. It was about marketing. It was everything you can think of. That was a Van Halen tribute band, by the way. For you, when you joined David Lee Roth, what were some of the takeaways business-wise, good or bad, but did any things that educated you about being in that band?
Well, again, it was kind of another, it was like an additional PhD after watching Dave in Van Halen, just to see like how he would deal with interviews and how he would
how his thinking would go. It was just interesting to observe the guy, and I do believe Dave had a real lot to do with what we know as Van Halen. Eddie's guitar was the thing that drew me to it instantly. When I first heard that, I couldn't believe it. But then once I got into the band, the real entertainment factor was Dave. And after reading the books, I think it can be safe to say that, Ed and Al were kind of, they're up there playing and standing there and being great. But Dave was the guy that said, come on, run around, jump, get a nice pair of pants, do something, So in a way, that was the framework. That was the cover on the book that really sold the book. The contents of the book, of course, were Ed and Al and Mike. But, I think Dave really opened the door. But and now I lost track of what your question was.
No, just basically what you might have learned about the business. Yeah. Sorry,
I got lost in the fog of
it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
But he was Dave is a very wise man and very, very good at understanding what to do and when to do it, and just being around him and observing his decision-making process was a huge inspiration to me. And just his insistence on the discipline of the show is everything. And when you're up on deck, it's got to be awesome. Yeah. There's nothing less than awesome. It's got to be amazing. And a couple of times when there's a couple things wrong, and Dave would sometimes get a little pissed off about it.
Yep.
And afterwards, I'd have to say, he's right. He's completely right. I can't argue with the fact that he's right. So come on, let's fix this and let's get this correct. So interesting thing. It was a life-changing experience.
Great. Here's a question I ask every guest. At least I try to. Every single guest that comes on here with a Van Halen themed talk show. It's obviously it's a highlight to ask this. So Van Halen time capsule. We have to put a time capsule together to represent rock music, or represent Van Halen. We'll say 200 years from now when it gets dug up or it's unearthed from space or whatever. What record do you put in of Van Halen to represent Van Halen 300 years from now?
Well, of course, Van Halen 1 is the obvious because that was their. All of those years were finally captured. Van Halen 2, they had less time to capture. Like I said earlier, talking about the Winery Dogs, rather than go album tour, we see the liability of it sometimes. You don't have enough life to live to do what you did on your first record because you just did another record 8 months ago.
That's right.
So it can be a bit of a liability. But I really, even though it was their least successful record, Fair Warning, for me, was quite a great record in that we had just toured with them on the Women and Children's first record tour, and that was the record they did after, and so that held a special spot for me. But I think in the end, I'd have to go run the numbers and go, let's go with the first Van Halen record. It just was this giant stamp into cement of these four guys, their lives. That time in history and that time in music. It was them saying, like I said earlier, the world went skinny tie, synth, haircut 100. No offense, haircut 100. But and suddenly this bulldozer called Van Halen came and wiped the whole thing away. And for us musicians playing in clubs, that was a gift from the heavens. Just okay, we started playing that stuff, and the dance floor would respond, and people, would finally back to playing rock again. I think that they single-handedly saved what we know today as hard rock and heavy metal. I believe, in my humble opinion.
I believe so too. And I'm glad you started with Fair Warning. I know you went back with the first record as your favorite. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's nice to always hear it. Fair Warning to me is very, very special. Just to me, it represents my favorite song, which is Unchained. I love the whole album. Eddie's playing was kind of like a race car going out of control. Almost gonna hit the wall, but it never does. It's just amazing. But we have another guest jumping in. This is nice. I'm really glad we did this time slot too. It's difficult for us here in North America, but it's also good for people overseas. I got Cameron Brown jumping in from Scotland. Great guitar player.
Wonderful.
And actually, if I'm not mistaken, he's played with Mitch Malloy, who has a Van Halen connection. He says, hello from Scotland.
I've heard.
Yeah. He says, hey, from Scotland, Billy, you and Paul are a huge inspiration. I played Addicted to That Rush for my final college guitar exam over here. Hope to see you guys live one day.
Yeah, I think we have a date in Scotland on this tour.
Good.
So we're very excited about it. We played Scotland several times through the years, a famous club called the Barrowlands.
Mm-hmm.
We played in Glasgow, I think, and in another Scottish gig we did too. I forgot. It's been a lot of years, but yeah, I'm looking forward to playing there again. And we're going to do. I think our last show was in Birmingham.
Okay.
In England, but before that we'll be doing. So if you check
Mr. Big Site,
check online or wherever, they'll have more details about it. I'm always the last to know what the details are. I know we're playing there, but I don't know where.
No problem. So Cameron, take a look in the description of this video down below. I've got a lot of Billy's different properties, from the Winery Dogs to Sons of Apollo, and then I've got MrBigSite.com. So look, I was just on the site earlier with the tour date, so have a look there and see where he's coming close to you. So hopefully you can get in there and see them. Ian Guitarman says, really fascinating stuff. Thank you for taking the time, Billy, and of course, Eric. And here's a good question. You mentioned Rush earlier, and I love Rush to death. Probably was my second or third favorite band. Randall says, has Billy ever got to jam with Geddy?
No, actually, Geddy was late for sound check one time in San Diego. He was stuck in LA traffic, and they needed to do sound check. So Alex and Neil asked me to come up and play Geddy's bass, and I did the sound check. And then I didn't know, but the sound man recorded it.
Oh.
And he gave it to me. So I've actually posted it a couple times. You can find it on YouTube, the Billy Sheehan Rush sound check. We just jammed a little bit. It was pretty cool. So I haven't actually sat down and jammed directly with Geddy, but what a grandmaster.
He sure is.
On top of being one of the finest human beings, all three of them. That I've ever known. They were so kind to us. Mr. Big opening up for Rush.
Mm-hmm.
We did it the Presto tour. I think we did almost the whole tour, and then we did a lot of Roll the Bones too. But I was, and please understand where this comes from. I was never really a Rush fan, only because more of timing and the amount of time I have to listen to bands. Plus, when I first got into progressive music, it was early Genesis with Peter Gabriel.
Right.
So when I heard Rush, I thought, wait, that's kind of like Genesis. So I kind of wrote them off.
Okay.
No offense, but I just kind of wrote them off a little bit. Later on, when we toured with them, I really fell in love with the band.
Yeah.
But I wasn't your typical guy that came up playing Rush songs or being into Rush in their early days. I didn't know a lot of their songs, and a lot of people are always surprised that, oh, you must have been completely into Rush because you're from Buffalo and it's close to Toronto. No, I actually never owned a Rush record or anything. But after we toured with them, and again, there's only so many hours in a day to listen to so many bands, and Rush, for some reason, it just didn't catch me. It's funny. I through the years, I've had people sit me down and turn me on to a band or a kind of music. Sit me down and say, "Okay, check this out." And wow, and I learn from it and I get into it. Unfortunately, no one ever did that with me with Rush, and so I was just never much of a fan. But again, once we toured with them, they were such fine people and they were so awesome live and so great in so many ways. One of my favorite songs they did was off Presto, a song called The Pass. I just absolutely loved that song. I think they did it once for me in Soundcheck, too, when I walked in the auditorium. It was so amazing. But what a wonderful, supreme talent bunch, and just great people. It's so great to know.
Yes,
I
bet.
When you look up to people and you see, somebody like that, and then find out that they're really fine, wonderful people, and they're friendly and nice and generous and cool, and somebody you would love to hang with or have a coffee with or a beer with or whatever. And Rush are that and more. They're a really wonderful bunch.
Great story. A couple of last questions here. These are asking about further artists that you may or may not have played with. This is from Vintage Sounds. Did Billy ever get a chance to play with the late great Randy Rhoads?
No, sadly he passed away on my birthday, March 19th.
Oh, really?
I think I was still back in Buffalo at the time.
Okay.
I hadn't moved out to LA yet. I did that when Dave called me. That was summer of '85. I think he had passed the year before, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Unfortunately, no. Sadly, I didn't get a chance to. What a loss. But there was a live Ozzy Osbourne tape bootleg somebody gave me on cassette, and I had it on my cassette Walkman. I listened to it 1,000 times. It was with Tommy Aldridge on drums, Rudy on bass, and Randy on guitar, and it was just one of my favorite listening to. Actually, I remember digitizing that cassette, so I could put it into my iTunes. I recorded it into
Nice.
Pro Tools, made a digital version of it, and cut it up so I could have it in my iTunes, that original bootleg. Quite a great player.
For sure, for sure. And Ian, Guitarman, says, is there anyone left that Billy hasn't got to play with or meet? So it could be playing with or meet that he would like to.
Well, sadly, Paco de Lucia passed away a few years back, and he was is the top on my list to play with. I met him briefly one time years ago, and he's if those who don't know, he's a flamenco grandmaster, as good as it gets. And just anytime you start to think you're good, go listen to Paco de Lucia, and that'll shut you right up.
Yeah,
he is just so wonderful. Not that I could keep up with him, I'm qualified to play with him, but man, what a genius. I haven't ever played with Billy Cobham. It was probably one of my biggest musical influences as a drummer. I got to play, of course, with Dennis Chambers, who was greatly inspired by Billy, and Dennis is the greatest musician I know on any instrument. But I'm very, very lucky to have played with a lot of great players. I would have loved to have played with Rory Gallagher. He's one of my favorite of all time. Just a genius player. He passed away as well. So I'll have to put my thinking cap on and come up with some new guys.
Yeah, that's good. No, you definitely have played with a plethora of great musicians, and I think a lot of them would probably have said, "Yeah, we got to play with Billy Sheehan too," which is kind of nice as well too. So I'm sure they've.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
No problem.
Wonderful.
As we wrap up, let's just say this. So you've got the Sons of Apollo tour coming up supposedly in 2018. The guys have kind of hinted at that. You're finishing out, I guess, November, part of December with Mr. Big right now. What else is in the immediate near future that you might be able to share with us?
I'm sorry, one more time. I got interrupted.
So
what was the last part?
So other than the Sons of Apollo tour in the new year and finishing out Mr. Big overseas right now, anything that you can share with us that's upcoming projects, anything of the sort?
Well, the record with the Fell will probably be coming out. That's but it's certainly a more song oriented radio record, but it's really a well done a piece of work. I'm very, very pleased with it. I'm probably going to do another solo record. I moved to Nashville, and one of my favorite drummers of all time, Ray Lugier, who played with Dave for a while, and also but plays with Korn now. He lives in Nashville also. He's one of my inspirations for moving out there. I'm probably going to get together with him and work some stuff out, bass and drums, which will be wonderful. I love playing with Ray. And we'll be doing some Mr. Big stuff next year. I think they're looking at Indonesia, India, Australia. They're trying to get that together.
Nice.
So a lot more of that, and just more to come of just about everything. I'm excited about the Sons of Apollo tour coming up. It's going to be a blast to play that stuff live. It's not going to be easy, which I like.
Yeah.
Requires sit down and figure those lines out again, and now play them live with different conditions night to night. So that's the true test. That's going to be a blast.
That'd be great. Do you think you'll hit Canada at all on that tour?
I sure hope so. We never choose where we play.
I know.
We only play where I know but sometimes occasionally I get an irate fan. Why aren't you playing in Australia? Particularly Australia, because a lot of people think that we're purposely avoiding. And I said for years, I'll play anywhere that will hire us, except in a place where there's a shooting war. And in fact, we played in India with Mr. Big, and they had to call a truce in the area because there was a shooting war going on. They got the tribal leaders together and got them to knock it off for a day for Mr. Big to do a show. So I'd have even played in places where there is a shooting war. Wow. So there's no place I don't want to play.
Yep.
I mean, if you think it through, let's go someplace, play in front of hundreds or thousands of your friends, hang out, have a blast, and again, there's free beer afterwards. Why wouldn't I want to do that? And occasionally you see some money from it too, so that's even better. Yep. But I would love to play Canada again. Across too, I'd love to go to Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver. Played all those and Eat 'em and Smile. It was just marvelous. So and with Rush as well, it was just great. So I'd love to play a lot more in Canada.
And there's
growing up in Buffalo, Toronto was like second home for us. We'd be on Yonge Street and at the Gas Works and Piccadilly Tube and Larry's Hideaway and all these places. We played all of them, and it was just an incredible scene back in the day.
It sure was. That's when you could go to any bar in any city, even in small towns where I grew up, was like 40,000 people. there would be about 6 or 8 bars in a small town like that, and there'd be lineups or live bands every night and lineups out the door, and people could go to every bar.
Single night.
Yeah, Amazing. It was great. Yeah. It's just we've lost that. Last comment over in the chat at Vintage Sound says, awesome late show this week has been phenomenal. Thanks for all the great work you do for the channel. EVH Gear Rocks. Thank you very, very much. I'm just gonna say thank you to everyone joining in the chat for making this a great. Actually, is a really good turnout for a very early morning show. And Billy, I want to thank you as well too for taking the time and sharing your insight.
It's my pleasure. I apologize about the time when we're on tour here. It is a busy time. I usually get up and get right into the venue and start warming up and doing things. So I was very, very happy to take a break on that and spend some time with you and with your listeners and watchers as well. I apologize that there's no video, but I know it'd keep dropping in and out, and that's a huge pain in the neck.
No, you made the right decision. That's perfect. I mean, we got your smiling mug on a thumbnail. That's all that matters. No, it's great.
Hey, well, let me. I just thought of this. I think see if this is something that might be appealing.
Okay.
I remember, now we all know that Van Halen took the name Genesis initially.
Yes.
And then Ed went to Tower Records on Sunset and found that Genesis already existed.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that record in his hand. I don't know if he bought the record or not. But here's my question to you and to your to all Van Halen aficionados. Listen to the musical beginning of Attack of the Giant Hogweed from Genesis.
Okay.
Probably the record he may have held up as one of the earlier ones. And Eruption.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not sure who the guitarist was in that particular version of Genesis, but I do believe it's Hammer-Ons.
Okay.
And it's and part of it is exactly what Eruption is. So my question was, I wonder if Ed was inspired by that one particular line in Attack of the Giant Hogweed, because it's exactly the same notes and played exactly the same way.
Wow.
It's a hammer-on for sure.
Yeah.
And it's part of what became Eruption. So that may have been an inspiration.
Well, you've got us on a mission now. Everyone's gonna be, when we're done hanging up, they're gonna run out to YouTube or whatever whatever it may be.
Attack of the Giant Hogweed. It's like it's very similar to the notage that's on. I don't have my bass out now. I play for you. I promise I won't sing anymore. I promise. But it's very much the same thing. And I was always wondering if Ed was inspired by that.
It very well could be.
Later on, once you peruse your chat room and see what other people say, give me your consensus of what everyone thought about that. That would be interesting.
I will for sure, and I had to write it down because I might forget, especially with the amount of hours of sleep I'm running not on. So I wrote it down for sure, and my writing is very poor right now. It looks like a doctor's signature or prescription.
More Tim Hortons coffee for you.
I will. I know. I'll check that out, and so some of the fans will as well too. But listen, I'm going to let you fly here and get off to the gig. Have a fantastic show this evening. Say hi to the guys in the band. Tell Paul I love him, and we all love him as well too. And
wonderful.
Good stuff, Billy, and thank you so very, very much for your generosity today. And we're going to let you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and thanks for keeping the fires alive regarding Van Halen, a band that I love with all my heart and soul. And it's just wonderful to see that the legacy they've created has spawned shows like yours and books like Noel and Greg Renoff have written, and what a phenomenon, and we're all kind of a part of that as fans. So it's quite an amazing thing, and I'm glad you're keeping that fire burning there as well.
Thank you. It's a lot of fun. It's a passion, and it's my love as well too. And one of my guitar heroes got to pass the torch to all these younger fans and keep the spirit alive, as you say. So thank you.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
All right.
You have a good one, Billy. We'll talk to you very, very soon.
Thanks very much. Send me a link so I can post it of your archive show, and I'll make sure to tell everyone to listen.
I will for sure.
Great, man.
All right, you take care now.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There you have it, folks. Billy Sheehan. That was a very early morning show, and I didn't know if I was going to go to sleep last night and set the alarm, and I messed up on the time zones. I thought it was going to be 4:30 my time, 10:30 his time. He had a window of opportunity for this interview, and it was actually 5:30 my time, so I actually could have gone to sleep, and but lots of coffee. This one's cold now. I'm going to need another one. I'm probably going to just chill with Poison Ivy for about a half an hour, 45 minutes, and then I'm going to crash like no tomorrow. and then get up, play some guitar, and book the next show. We actually have, from Sons of Apollo, Jeff Scott Soto coming on the show this Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, that just means we have one member left, Mike Portnoy. So I'm putting the little bugs in his ear right now to get on the show. We'll talk about his incredible career with multiple bands, as just like all these guys. So we'll look forward to having him on. But Jeff Scott Soto says he is the most knowledgeable and the Van Halen aficionado in Sons of Apollo. And we're going to see if that's a check that he can cash. We'll find out. So I'm just going to wrap up with some comments over here in the chat. I'm going to let you all go. So I was very happy to have Billy on the show, and it was great for him to take his time on the road with the Mr. Big Tour. And I think we did make a good executive decision by going with audio towards the end. Hopefully that was okay with everybody. I'd rather have audio as opposed to bad video. I had a problem last night too with the show. And actually Billy is just, Billy's just texting me right now. I'm sure he won't mind if I read his text. He says, awesome. Thanks so much. Hope your listeners enjoyed. Stay in touch and send a link of the archive. Take care, your friend Billy. P.S. Get some sleep. You rock, Billy. I just want to try to acknowledge some people's comments again. So yeah, we went with audio, and I think that was the right choice. And I'm so tired. I don't even know if I can actually even read. I'm having a hard time reading, focusing. Anything for the EVH Gear TV fans. I will stand in the rain. I will walk in bare feet in the snow. I will stay up for 3 days straight if it means getting a good guest for you guys and girls. All for you. Steve Hackett was the guitar player. There you go. Vintage Sound says, love you, Billy. Poison Ivy says, take care, everyone. Chat soon. James says, what an incredible interview. Thank you so much, James. You and I have been talking about the show a little bit, and that means a lot to me. Thank you very much. Poison Ivy says, fantastic. Ian Guitar Man says, wow, great job, Eric. Randall Fisher says, can't wait to see who's next on the show. I'm going to keep them coming. I'm going to keep them coming for you. All for you guys. Cameron Brown says, such a great interview. Thank you, Eric, and thank you, EVH Gear TV. And Cameron, I really hope you're very welcome, and I hope you get a chance to see Mr. Big over there. I believe they are coming your way. Vintage Sound says, awesomeness, Eric. Bruce Anderson, thanks for the super interesting show. And Randall Fisher says, Eric, get some rest. I'm going to do that right now. I love you guys so much, and I love bringing this stuff to you. It's I push the buttons, I bring the guests in, and I share with you guys, and I learn from you guys too. I learned some things this morning, I should say, from you. So we're going to have some more fun. We're going to keep this coming. No rest for the wicked. And I'm going to turn it over to the little man, and he is going to tell us what his name is. I don't even remember his name anymore. No, I do. I'm kidding. It's my name as well, too. I'm giddy and tired. Let's wrap this baby up. All right. We will see you very, very soon. You guys rock. Time for some sleep. Cheers.